A trap. John Kramer's got a rope for that. Here's a look at the NECA toys. This is the Saw Ultimate Jigsaw Black Robe version. In the Saw movies, the Jigsaw killer abducts the morally wayward in a twisted attempt to teach his victims the value of life. Once captured, his victims must face impossible choices in a horrific game of survival as he communicates with them through an eerie puppet. This 7-inch Saw action figure in the black robe gets the ultimate treatment, with a fully articulated body under a wire fabric robe. Accessories include interchangeable heads and hands, pig mask head, puzzle head trap, tape recorder, extended blade, and Billy the puppet with trach. It's very lucky for you that the only thing you have to shed to get your hands on this guy is a few extra dollars. The John Kramer, though, from the Jigsaw films is available right now in the black robe, either in retail stores or online. I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA that provided this sample we could have a look at. This is, though, using the same body and the same head sculpts, really as well the same accessories, as the red robe John Kramer that we've already looked at. The figure, because of that, is going to stand the same at 7 inches in height, or about 18 centimeters tall. Just when you think you've seen the end of Saw, you realize another one's getting made. Somewhat similar logic can also be applied when it comes to what we're getting here from NECA Toys, and by no means is that a bad thing at all. Having already looked at the red robe version, you can see essentially it's just a color swap of robe colors. Before it was the red, now I feel it's more familiar of the colors with the black and the red accents. When I think of John Kramer, specifically wearing this robe, this is the color scheme I tend to think of, not necessarily the red. I think of the red, I tend to think of the accomplices that come in the later sequels, but I think the black and red robe look the best for this mold. We did also, if you travel back into your time machine by several years, we did also as well get some cult classic releases of these guys. There was a black robe, there was a red robe, there was 2 versions that had a pig mask, then there were 2 versions, one that had a bald John Kramer head portrait, and then one that had the hair. Ironically enough, though, as we did discuss in the review of this guy here, the head sculpts that they are using for the newer releases seem to be cast in the same tooling as the original ones from the cult classic days. If you're in the know when it comes to the accessories that came included with the red robe, then you'll be also equally in the know when it comes to the things that come included with the black robe. They're essentially the exact same accessories, which is a bit of a bummer because really, to push the idea of getting more than just the one, it would be nice if they had thrown in unique accessories for specific figure releases. We'll talk again more about that more in a moment. First, the figure does come included with Billy the puppet. Now, I've already taken the liberty of adding Billy on top of his tricycle. It's just really a simple case of removing the hands. I should have really worked this in reverse. You get yourself essentially a tricycle. The tricycle does rotate. Like though before, I had a problem with the pedals. They wouldn't be out. I couldn't actually get them to rotate. You can see that there's, if you can see it right there, there's pegs just on the top that for all intents and purposes should then plug onto the bottom of Billy's boots. Unfortunately though, with the red robe, I couldn't get these pedals to turn. The black robes though, turn perfectly fine. You really don't even need these pegs at all. Really, the only thing you need to really do is take Billy's hands and grasp them around his handlebars, and that's more than enough just to get the figure to stand in it. Now, if you're looking at the figure, speaking of standing, he actually can't really stand on his own. Because of this one leg right here. This leg, you could buy into the idea that if you had yourself like a display stand, I guess if you want to look like he's kind of walking, you could probably do that as well. But because they don't actually include a secondary stand for this guy just to be on his own, there's no real way that this guy can balance on his own. There is some posability, but I guess first before that, we can actually look at the head sculpt. It is really, by the way, no different than the red robe version, so exact same Billy the Puppets. We've also as well established earlier that in fact, let me just move this guy out of the way. The Billy the Puppet that we did get from the Cult Classics days, which just happens to be this one right here, is the same one that we're getting now with the Ultimate releases. The color of the mask is, though, brighter and whiter on the original release, which I may have even said when we did the review of the red robe. I actually like the white face a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more paler, and it works a little bit more accurately to look the way it did in the movie. These spirals is also something that you can see. It's much larger on the Cult Classics release than what we're getting here with the Ultimates. The bodies are going to be exactly the same. Because of that as well, the articulation is going to be the same as well. The head's going to rotate. You can bring these arms out, which to look at this from thinking like from the days of Cult Classics, it was pretty impressive to think that an accessory like Billy the Puppet would have had the articulation that he did way back when. The arms do, again, move forward and back. You can bring them out. You can rotate the hands. You can move the legs forward and back this way as well. And there also seems to be some foot articulation too. But if you did want to get him on his tricycle, all you really have to do is just get him seated, first of all. turn his hands around, so you want to make sure you line them up to the handlebars. Then just slide his hands into the grip. I realize I got a piece of tape on my thumb. Thank you for somebody pointing that out. Slide this on the handlebars, and that's all you really need to do for Billy the Puppet. And he rolls. I mean, he has wheels that rotate on the back, and he's got a wheel that rotates on the front. He's easy to roll in and out of rooms. Just grab that piece of tape. It must have been really when I was grabbing all the accessories out of the tray, I just realized now I had a little bit of tape on my thumb. Thank you for those that were spotting that. So the other thing that the figure comes also included with is the reverse bear trap. First of all, I mean, obviously it's the same bear trap as we did get from before. Here's where I feel like they could have mixed things up just a little bit. I mean, if you want to stick with the idea of using a head trap, maybe using like the Venus flytrap from Saw 2 would have been an ideal swap out for what we're getting here. So because again, you only have two jigsaws so far. Again, to have two different head traps would have been an ideal way to, again, make a collector go then out of the way. If they already collected the one figure, then they could be more interested, nudged in the right direction to get a second Saw. Because again, like, you're probably not going to be using both jigsaw reverse bear traps with your figures. You may use maybe one, but the likelihood that you're going to use and display with both is probably very slim. The only other thing I would have also said too, and going back to here Billy the Puppet, because we already did get technically a Billy already with a red robe, I think what they could have done, and this is only my own personal opinion, obviously you're not going to have probably two Billy the Puppets displayed on the shelf with two John Kramers. You really only need one Billy. I was thinking, what if they had taken the TV set from, it's been used lots of times, the NECA Toys, Ninja Turtles accessory set had this, more specifically the Nightmare on Elm Street box set that had Freddy Krueger coming out the top of the TV from Nightmare 3. If you had used that TV set and put a lenticular sticker on the front, you could have put like the Billy the Puppet where if you moved it the right way, it would look like Billy's mouth was moving. From a tooling standpoint, they already have the mold. It's not like they would have to have molded anything from scratch. And again, like if they had released, say, the Billy the Puppet with the black robe, they could have released the TV set Billy with maybe the red robe. Just some ideas I'm throwing out there. Other things that the figure also comes included with is the tape deck. Now, it's the exact same tape recorder as the original one. The tapes are exactly the same. There's nothing at all different from one to the other. Exactly the same. Figure also comes included with the same sleeve blade, too, which, again, looking at this one, yes, maybe they probably could have made one bloodier and kept the other one clean. So, of course, if you wanted to mix and match them, if you have both of them, you could decide which blade you want to use with the sleeve of John's. But yeah, you get essentially the exact same blade. Hands are also something that's going to also be shared too. Let me just move this Billy out of the way. We don't need to have two Billys in the view here. You get two closed gripped hands, two fists, as some would say. And again, these just swap out with the hands that he has right now. And then he also has a gripping hand. The gripping hand is then suitable for holding the tape recorder. And it's not going to go anywhere either. I mean, it would survive the blizzard test. It's not going anywhere. And again, that could be swapped out with the hands that he has right now. So those are all the other things outside of really then the swappable heads. The heads that he has are the pig mask, which again is the pig mask that we already got before. Long-term plans, if anybody is at all interested, what I really am planning to do is have the red robe version of the Jigsaw Killer wearing this pig mask, and then the one that is we're looking at right here is either probably going to be having the bald portrait or the one that has the hair. I don't feel the need that I have to have two displayed the exact same way. So one pig mask is probably going to go back in the packaging. It is going to go back in the packaging, and then probably this one's going to go on the red robe. Don't drop this, whatever you do. I think we also talked a little bit about this also when we looked at the Cult Classics. I did want to show you that it seems to be that they are using the same molds again. Not a bad thing at all, because the head sculpt from before, like the pig mask was fine. It didn't necessarily, I'm not looking at this and thinking, well, it needs an update. They need to course correct this and make this a little bit more accurate to the movie. I mean, it looked just as good to the movie back then, too, that they have used the mold again, and we're just getting it with this release. Then, of course, you get yourself the bald version of John Kramer. I guess we see in, what, Saw 2? Saw 2. I got the little chin beard going on there as well. Is that a Van Dyke? Somebody can tell me down below in the comments section. Very pale in complexion. It certainly does have a very strong likeness to the actor. And again, if you want to swap the head sculpts out, all of this is just so easily accomplished by holding on to the head, holding on to the torso, I should say. Pulling off the head, and then just using the head that you want to then use. I guess I could technically, too, use one of the, maybe use this head with the red robe. No, I'm going to probably stick with the pig mask. Show you guys the differences between the two. The faces are almost identical other than the Van Dyke. Is that what it's called? A Van Dyke? Down below their chin beard. And then this one just has the longer hair. I do kind of wish in a way we could get an updated version of this where we would have had like an older version of John, and then we could have had like the beard, little stubble though on his face. The thing that's cool though about this figure is even though really he is using the same body as the red robe, the one thing that the red robe couldn't do that the black robe can is that you can actually take the robe completely off. You really could though with this one too. The thing about it though is these are all Velcroed by the way, you just open this up and you could pull these down. The problem with it though is in order for him to have black sleeves, he has to have then entire black arms. And it's not really obviously going to work then with the red torso. However though, that's only the red robe version. If you look at the black robe, and first of all, the black robe obviously does have a hood, so if you want to put the hood over top of his head too, you can do that. There is a wire that's built around the outer area of the hood. There is also a wire that's built around the bottom of the cloak too, and also really along the section here too. So if you want to have a little bit more of a dynamic pose, you can kind of bring the I don't know, the robe up like this if you want. Like I said, I don't know if a good gush of wind is blowing it up, for example. But what you could really do too is that you could take the robe off completely. Now this isn't an idea that I have long term, because I think underneath it it's pretty bare, but if you want to take this off, you could really remove the robe altogether, slide it off his arms. These don't seem adhered at all. I mean, obviously, as you're seeing here, you can easily just pull these down his arms. The only thing you have to kind of worry about is sometimes the fabric gets hung up around the elbows. But again, you just want to keep continuing to pull this off. And if you wanted to, I mean, now you've got basically just a black robe you're not going to be doing anything with, but at least though underneath, you've got yourself just a regular base body. So if you want to have this displayed, I mean, John's not always going to be walking around in a robe. That's especially if he's outside talking to people in the real world. But if you wanted to, I suppose, yeah, you could just take the robe off completely. It also gives me as well a chance to show you guys what the body looks like underneath. Again, like all the articulation is there, although the hard thing with really black robe characters, really anything that has fabric over top of it, is that you never really quite know where the articulation bends, especially in the elbows. Let's get his hands, though, back in place. And we'll get the other one here also in. Okay, so for this guy's articulation, I mean, really, I've removed really all the fun aspects of this character by taking off the black robe. But at least, again, it's more to show you that if you wanted to, the black robe at least gives you the option of, if you want to have this guy displayed without the robe, you can do that. Now, for the figure's articulation, it's going to be the exact same as the red robe. The head's going to be on a ball joint, so it allows the head to rotate all the way around. The head can look down, look up, really high up, and you can also move it back and forth as well. Now, it does also seem, too, like he's got something going on in his neck, so you can rotate his neck also there as well. For his shoulders, they were a little on the tight side. They still continue to be a little on the tight side, but you can bring them out at around 45 degrees. You can take the arms and rotate them all the way around. Now, speaking a little bit about tight joints, this joint here is really tight, and it still continues to be tight to the point where I feel like I don't want to force this. But I can at least show you on this side that the figure does, in fact, have a double hinge on the elbow. I'm probably going to have to go back and heat this up either in hot water or just maybe even just with a hairdryer just to see if I can soften up that joint just a little bit, because the last thing I really want to do, especially underneath the guise of a robe, I don't want to start to force something that should really never be forced in the first place. But yeah, just heat this up. Don't force it whatever you do, because you're only going to be upset that you broke your figure. Hands rotate, though, all the way around. You can also hinge them back and forth. The figure has an upper torso ball joint. The figure does have a lower torso ball joint. The legs do split. You can take them, move them forward, and move them back. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh. Single hinge only on the knee. You can rotate the lower leg. There's a hinge back and forth, and you can also rock these back and forth this way as well. I'm not really sure really what else you could do with this body, because I'm kind of just thinking outside the box or outside the mold. Could you probably use this body for something else? An all-black body? Maybe. Maybe you could. But, I mean, at least for right now, if you want to have this displayed, could really also get yourself a couple of just regular human hands. Maybe pulled it from Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers. You probably just swap them out with these so he doesn't have to have like black all the way down to his gloves. But yeah, there's one option available then if you want to have this figure displayed that way too. At the end of it though, I mean, for all the work and all the time I just spent taking the robe off, ultimately though, I'm not going to have John Kramer displayed like this. While he is though in more casual clothing, it does seem a little though out of place that he doesn't have his trademark robe. And speaking again of trademark robes, bringing back in the red robe version of him, when I first looked at that figure, and I still feel this way when looking at the red robe, when I tend to look at the red, I don't tend to think of John. I think of like all the accomplices that came afterwards, like Amanda, for example. The black robe is really the one that looks the most, I feel, like John. Because when I tend to think of him wearing the robe, it's always the black with the red trimming, and it does look, I feel, of the two figures, it looks better on this figure. Now, again, when it comes down to the accessory count and the lay of the land and everything that we've got, considering really that you're getting 2 Johns, if you want to pick up both versions of the Jigsaw Killer, then essentially it is meaning that you're going to be getting duplicates of those accessories. Something, though, I did say earlier is one thing that I think NECA could have really done is then changed around some of those parts. Yes, to get like the Venus flytrap, for example, it would have been a different molding here than the reverse bear trap. But to throw that in there, for example, would have already been incentive. To throw in like the TV with a lenticular sticker featuring Billy the Puppet on the front would, again, more incentive to get more collectors out there. Maybe that were on the fence and only really interested to get one. It would then nudge them in the right direction to get both instead. Just finishing up my review now of the John Kramer Black Robe version with honestly my least favorite of the 3 head sculpts. Of the ones that we get the pig mask, we get the hair and hairless version of John, and 3 heads are all the same 3 heads we got from the cult classic days. Reusing molds is not necessarily a bad thing if the molds weren't outdated in the first place, and with the ones that we get here, I don't think at all they need to be updated. If NECA has plans down the road, and I hope that they do, to release another version of the Jigsaw Killer, I think, if anything, they just need to add a little bit of stubble to the existing face that they have right now. The pig mask is going to go to the red robe. The haired version of John is going to go with the black robe, which then leaves behind my least favorite, the bald one. I was kind of thinking if I could customize a figure, and I'm not very good at customizing figures, but if you get one that has shorts and a t-shirt, you could probably use that bald portrait and recreate Escape John from the end of the first film. As an idea certainly throwing out there to NECA, if they want to get some more mileage out of their molds, because they've gotten quite a lot of mileage already from these molds, release an Escape John Kramer, all bloodied up from the end of the first Saw movie. Now, when it comes to also this figure, if you want to, as I did show you this in this review, unlike though the red robe, you could technically take off the black robe and just have a regular black outfit, casually dressed John underneath. It's believable enough until, of course, you can find probably a better body. I've seen some other examples out there where people were using bodies. I think one person did, in fact, use, was it the Blade Runner 2049 Harrison Ford? They were using that body and then the haired version of John Kramer. That might be an idea. I have that Harrison Ford, then he's not really doing anything at the time. I'm wondering maybe if I can use that body to produce a casually dressed John Kramer. Again, all these ideas throwing out there. One of the big ideas I mentioned in this review was maybe finding a way to give unique accessories between the red and the black, so that if you were to pick up one, you weren't getting the same accessories as the other. Instead of maybe having Billy the Puppets being double dipped with both releases, had maybe they swapped one Billy the Puppet out in favor of a TV with a lenticular sticker, hey, there's incentive for collectors to want to get more than John. More than one John. As it is, though, from head to toe, it's a nice looking John Kramer. I'm glad to have picked up now the black robe, courtesy of course, the folks over at NECA Toys that were kind enough to provide the sample. This guy, like I said, is available right now either in stores or online. Have you guys had the chance to pick up the red and the black robe version of John Kramer? And I'm going to pose the question to you, the viewing audience. Of the two, which do you prefer more, the black robe or the red robe? Let me know down below. In the meantime, if you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid. Throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Make sure you turn on the bell. Make sure you come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.